All right, so let's say you're enjoying that perfect glass of OJ, right? Super refreshing. But have you ever, like, actually thought about what happens to all the leftovers? The peels, the pulp, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing how much is left behind.
It's a lot, right? And then think about that on a massive scale. We're talking about an entire industry's worth of juice waste. So we're going deep on this one with GreenFlow Environmental Solutions. They're tackling this whole juice waste thing head on.
Yeah, and it's a bigger issue than a lot of people realize. We're talking tons and tons of this organic material, and it's not just orange peels, it's everything. All this stuff, if it's not taken care of properly, it ends up in landfills.
This is a whole other problem, right?
Exactly, landfills are filling up, and all that waste creates some seriously bad greenhouse gases, methane, that kind of thing. It's not good.
Definitely not. And I was looking at GreenFlow's website, and they were talking about the different kinds of waste they deal with. Fruit pulp, obviously, but also liquid waste and byproducts. It's wild.
It really is. And they even mentioned dealing with regulations, which is a whole other can of worms. Just a quick mention of that tells you how complicated this industry really is.
For sure. There are actual rules about how you get rid of all this stuff. That's where GreenFlow comes in. They have these tailored solutions, as they put it, for managing all this juice waste sustainably.
Right. And that's really the key here, sustainable solutions.
What does that actually mean? Tailored solutions, it sounds kind of, like a marketing thing.
I know what you mean, but I think in this case, it's more than just a buzzword. Every juice producer is different. They're making different juices, working at different scales. It's not one size fits all.
Okay, so you're saying a small juice bar versus like a huge orange juice company. Those are two totally different beasts when it comes to waste.
Exactly. And GreenFlow gets that. They actually analyze each company's waste stream, figure out what kind of byproducts they're making and how much. It's like a waste audit before they do anything else.
So they're like waste detectives.
Kind of, yeah. They figure out the best way to deal with each company's unique mess, let's call it.
I like it. So they're figuring out the problem, but how are they actually getting rid of all this juice waste? Their website mentions something about eco-friendly processing. What is that? What's the secret sauce?
It's a lot more complicated than just like backyard composting, although I'm sure that's part of it. What's really interesting is they use a combination of different techniques.
Okay, so like what? Give me an example.
Well, they mentioned anaerobic digestion. Have you ever heard of that?
I feel like I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
So it's like composting, but way more intense. Basically, microorganisms break down the waste, and here's the really cool part, they do it without any oxygen.
Wow, okay.
And get this, the process actually makes biogas, which can be used as energy.
Whoa, hold on. So you're saying instead of just like composting those orange peels, they're creating power from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Turning trash into treasure.
It's a perfect example of that, and it shows why this whole tailored approach is so important. GreenFlow isn't just finding a place to dump this waste. They're finding ways to turn it into something valuable.
So they're reducing waste and they're creating clean energy. It's a win-win. But you know what else I thought was really cool?
What's that?
They have this partnership with One Tree Planted. So for every service they do, they plant a tree.
Oh, yeah, I love that about them.
It's such a cool idea. It's like they're going above and beyond. They're not just solving a problem. They're actively doing something good for the planet.
Totally. It might seem like a small thing, planting one tree, but it's really powerful. It makes their impact, real.
It does. Everyone understands the importance of trees, right? Like, we need them.
We do. For everything. They're fighting deforestation. They clean our air. It's just a really nice way for them to give back and show that they care.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, if they're finding these creative solutions for juice waste, what about other industries?
Yeah.
Like, where else could we be doing this?
Oh, absolutely. It makes you think about all the food waste globally, or even in your own kitchen.
That's so true. Or the fashion industry. They have a huge problem with textile waste.
Right. GreenFlow's whole thing is about finding custom solutions and figuring out how to reuse things, how to make them into resources. That could totally work in so many different industries.
That's so interesting. But I feel like some people listening might be thinking, okay, this is all fascinating, but like, I'm not running a juice factory. What does this have to do with me? So how does this relate to the average person? What would you tell them?
That's such a good question. I think this is where it gets really important, where the rubber meets the road. Because, yeah, we're talking about industrial scale solutions, but the ideas behind them, those are for everyone. It all starts with being aware,
Yeah.
Like next time you're buying groceries, think about that orange you're about to buy. Where did it come from and what's going to happen to the parts you don't eat?
That's such a good point.
We can all be more aware of how the things we do every day affect the planet. Like, could you compost more at home? Are you throwing away food that you could be eating? Could you buy products with less packaging? They seem like small things, but when we all start doing them, it adds up.
I love that. It all starts with that awareness, that spark.
Exactly. We all have the power to make a difference. We can support companies that are trying to be better, and we can be more thoughtful in our own lives.
It's like GreenFlow planting that tree.
Yeah.
It seems small, but it makes a difference. And maybe it inspires other people to do something good too.
Yes. It's about realizing we're all part of the solution here.
And hopefully, by digging into this whole juice waste thing, we've given our listeners something to think about, maybe even inspired them to make a change, even a small one. That's what this is all about, right? It's not just about the information. It's about what we do with it. So they're figuring out the problem, but how are they actually getting rid of all this juice waste? Their website mentions something about eco-friendly processing. What is that? What's the secret sauce?
Well, it's definitely a lot more complicated than just, tossing your apple core in a compost bin at home.
Right.
Although I'm sure composting is part of it. What I find really interesting is how they use a bunch of different techniques together. Like one thing they mentioned was anaerobic digestion.
Anaerobic digestion. Okay, I feel like I've heard that term before.
It's kind of like composting, but think way more intense and on a much bigger scale. Okay.
So basically, it uses microorganisms to break down all that organic waste. But here's the really cool part. They do it without any oxygen.
Wow, no oxygen.
Yeah, and get this. The process actually creates biogas, which can be used as energy.
Whoa! Hold on. So you're saying instead of just composting those orange peels, they're creating power from them.
Exactly.
Isn't that wild?
That's incredible. It's like turning trash into treasure.
It's a perfect example of that. And it shows why this whole customized approach is so important. It's not about just finding a landfill to dump everything in. GreenFlow is looking for ways to make this waste valuable again.
Yeah, so they're reducing waste and creating clean energy. Talk about a win-win. But you know what else really struck me about GreenFlow? They have this partnership with One Tree Planted, where they plant a tree for every service they provide. I mean, how cool is that?
Oh, I love that.
It's like they're going above and beyond. They're not just solving a problem. They're actively doing good for the environment.
I agree. And it might seem like a small thing, planting one tree, but it's so powerful.
Yeah.
It makes their impact feel real.
It does. Plus, everyone understands trees are important.
Absolutely. We need them for everything. Trees fight deforestation. They clean our air. It's just a really nice way for GreenFlow to give back and show that they're serious about environmental responsibility.
Exactly. And it makes you think, if they're finding these creative solutions for something like juice waste, what about other industries? Like, where else could we be using these kinds of ideas?
Oh, for sure. It really makes you think about all the food waste we have in the world.
It's a lot. Even just thinking about what we throw away in our own kitchens.
Right. Or think about the fashion industry. They have a huge problem with textile waste.
That's true. Fast fashion and all that.
It's a big problem. But GreenFlow's whole approach, figuring out custom solutions, figuring out how to turn waste into a resource again, that could work in so many different places.
That's so interesting. But I feel like some people listening might be thinking, okay, this is fascinating and all, but I'm not running a juice factory. What does this have to do with me? So how does this relate to the average person? What would you tell them?
That's a great question. And this is where I think it gets really important. Because, yeah, we're talking about industrial scale solutions, but the ideas behind them, those are for everyone. It all starts with just being aware, Like next time you're at the grocery store, think about that orange you're about to buy. Where did it come from? And what's going to happen to the parts you don't eat? We can all be more aware of how the things we do every day affect the planet.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. And it makes you think about all the little things we can do differently, too. Like, could you compost more at home? Are you throwing away food that you could be eating? Those little things make a difference.
Totally. Or like, could you try to buy things with less packaging?
Exactly. They seem like such small things, but if everyone starts making those changes, it can really add up and make a difference. It creates demand for companies to start doing things differently.
That's such a good point. It's like voting with your dollars, right? Supporting companies that are trying to be more sustainable.
Exactly. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about being more mindful.
I love that. It all starts with being aware.
Yes. Awareness is key.
It's like GreenFlow planting that tree. It's one small action, but it symbolizes something much bigger. It's about taking responsibility and trying to make things a little bit better.
And hopefully inspiring other people to do the same, even in their own small ways.
Exactly. So it sounds like what we're learning from GreenFlow and this whole deep dive into juice waste is that sustainability is about more than just big companies and complicated solutions.
Right. It's about all of us doing what we can, making conscious choices, being aware of the impact of those choices.
It's about those little sparks of awareness, those little actions we take every day that can add up to something bigger.
Exactly. And, who knows? Maybe something we talked about today sparked an idea for someone listening. Maybe they'll make a small change in their own life, and that could have a ripple effect. That's the power of a deep dive like this. It's not just about the information, it's about what we do with it.
Absolutely. Well said. That's a great note to end on, don't you think? It's not just about knowing, it's about doing. So to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you something to chew on, maybe even inspired you to take a sip of sustainability in your own life, no matter how small.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And thanks for joining us on this juicy journey. We'll catch you next time for another deep dive.